Hello everyone, in this video lecture we're going to discuss the differences between the two major cell types, which we call prokaryotes and eukaryotes. So we're going to start with prokaryote or prokaryotic cells. Alright, first thing that we need to know about prokaryotes are, they are the first cells known to have existed here on Earth over 5 billion years ago. Alright, so however they first got here, that's up for debate, but these are by fossil evidence and every other form of evidence we've uncovered on Earth. These are the first cells who have ever existed here on Earth. They are very small and very basic and simplistic, meaning there's really not much to them. All right, they're only going to have a couple key components that they would share with eukaryotes, but then they'll be missing everything else. They don't have a nucleus, so they have nothing to protect their DNA. And they have no other membrane-bound organelles like mitochondria, rough ER, smooth ER, Golgi, you name it. The only organelle that they do have are what we call ribosomes, which in themselves don't meet the classical definition of an organelle, which is a membrane-bound structure that does a specific function. Ribosomes are just protein and RNA, a form of nucleic acid, together, but they make protein, and every cell needs proteins. All bacteria that exist here on Earth are examples of what we call prokaryotes. Every single one of them. So when I say prokaryotes or prokaryotic, you're thinking bacteria. And then lastly, all prokaryotes or bacteria live as unicellular organisms. All right, they live by themselves. They function independently of any other cells. So again, independent down here you can see. Independent, and even when they attach to each other to form some type of colony, they're not really working together for the betterment of the whole group. All right, they're simply attached to each other. They're still operating independently of one another, so they're still considered unicellular. And again, lastly, all bacteria aren't bad guys like these little mobster bacteria down here. Are there bad bacteria? Absolutely. But for just as many bad ones, there are good ones that are living all over every square inch of your body, in your intestinal tract, your small intestine, your large intestine, your colon, you name it, that help you fight off bad bacteria, viruses, help you digest your food and absorb nutrients and extra water. They do serve a purpose. Now, if we were to look at a picture of a bacterial cell, very similar to the one we saw in our cells alive activity, this is everything that a bacterial cell could have. All right, now every cell, either prokaryotic or eukaryotic, is going to have at least the cell membrane. It's going to have cytoplasm. It's going to have DNA. And it's going to have ribosomes. So either prokaryotic or eukaryotic, they're always going to have at least those particular items. Now, bacteria can also have something called pili, which are these kind of little finger-like projections. They're mainly for helping a bacterial cell adhere to a surface, like a desk or a doorknob, or to attach to other bacteria like we see here. So the pili would be connected together at this point. The flagella, or flagellum for singular, is a long whipping-like tail. This is used for locomotion or movement of the entire cell. Most bacteria all have a cell wall, an extra protective layer made of cellulose. They can also have a capsule, also known as sometimes a slime layer, made of all different types of sugars and proteins that help protect the cell even more so than having just a cell wall and cell membrane. All right, there's some other things here mentioned, inclusion bodies and plasmid, but we're not going to be worried about those at this given time. Later in the year, we will come back to what a plasmid is, which is just like a circular piece of DNA, separate from the main DNA content. All right, and finally for eukaryotic cells, all right, a eukaryotic cell is the next step or evolution from prokaryotic. So think of it this way, all right, you have a car, it's 10 years old. You're going to buy a new one. The new one is going to do the same thing that the old one did, all right? Transport you from point A to point B, but now it contains all this additional technology for fuel economy, for comfort, for entertainment. It's just taking it to the next step, right? Well, that's what eukaryotic cells are. All right, they are the next step in the evolutionary process from prokaryotes. In general, they're going to be gigantic, way larger than a prokaryotic cell would be, and more complex, meaning more overall components and parts to them. All eukaryotes, no matter if they're animal, plant, fungus, insect, you name it, they're going to have a nucleus that contains and protects the DNA. They will also have all those, not all, but the majority of specialized membrane-bound structures called organelles, like mitochondria, chloroplast, Golgi body, etc. And lastly, all right, they may live as a single-cell organism, so they could be unicellular, like an amoeba or this cell right here. Or most times, they form multicellular organisms, again, like plants, insects, fungus, animals, you name it. All right, so again, these are the key things that prokaryotes do not have. Again, eukaryotes, just like prokaryotes, will have a cell membrane, cytoplasm, ribosomes, DNA. Not all eukaryotes, though, will have a cell wall. Only, for example, animals don't, but plants and fungus do. So we can't use cell wall as what all eukaryotes and bacteria have, because eukaryotes do have a lot more variety to them than what the prokaryotes do. And to finish up, just to kind of look at a general structure of a large eukaryotic cell right here. All right, this would be some type of animal cell. How do I know that? Well, first off, all times, plant cells are going to have chloroplasts, which are green. I don't see that here. And plant cells have a cell wall that really makes the cell look kind of rectangular or boxy, honeycomb in shape. And this one does not look like that. So you have all these crazy different components inside. With the majority of them, we're going to need to be able to visually identify them, like the Golgi or Golgi body or apparatus, either way is appropriate, and what its function is. So we're going to need to know that. Some organelles, like lysosomes and peroxisomes, they really look almost identical, so we won't have to visually identify those. We won't worry about that, but we will worry about understanding what their overall job is in the cell. But again, just looking at this compared to that prokaryotic cell, that prokaryotic cell, bacteria cell I showed you, might have been the size of this little vesicle I'm pointing to, or maybe even just half that size. I mean, just think about that compared to the overall size here of this animal-based eukaryotic cell. Much larger, as I said, much more specialized and complex. All right, so over the next week or so, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at the differences more so about prokaryotic and eukaryotic, but really diving into what all these major organelles do within a body. If you have any questions, make sure you ask during our next class session. Thank you.